Hi, good morning, everyone, and I hope you had a good day so far. All right, so the topic of this webinar is going to be what is this AutoCAD MEP, and we're going to and how you can work it and use it in your workflow. All right, so we're going to look at just introducing the software and just learn how and what you can do with it. How it's obtained, and we'll also then learn how and show you how to link with the architectural environment, as this particular software is more after creating the building is to add services, and you obviously require some context to add this particular components in. And we'll also give just a brief overview of the tools. We'll conclude and open the floor for questions. All right, so just introducing the software. Basically, what is AutoCAD MEP? It's built on the familiar AutoCAD platform. So it's basically an AutoCAD that's specifically designed for adding services into your building, including HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and piping. All right. Obviously, you can draw these objects out in 3D. You can view them from the top so that they appear 2D. Obviously, you can then also document this drawing with tags and dimensions, and you've got various benefits with this sort of workflow where you can count the number of objects, the length of ducts, and that sort of thing. All right. Okay, so it's basically a AutoCAD-based MEP drafting and design product. All right, so how can it be obtained? You can not purchase it on its own anymore. So how you would get hold of it is you would purchase just plain AutoCAD. Now, Autodesk has made all the flavors of AutoCAD available when you purchase just the plain AutoCAD. It's called the specialized tool sets. Now there are 7 specialized tool sets, including in this AutoCAD bundle. One of which is the MEP tool set. There's other tool sets for raster, plant, mechanical, electrical, architectural, and also a little bit of GIS that you can download. It's different products, so then is AutoCAD. So if you want one of these others, you would go to your Autodesk account, log in, and then from there download this particular piece of software. Right, so one thing that's the one way to get hold of AutoCAD MEP is to simply purchase the full version of AutoCAD. Just on that note, there also is a AutoCAD LT, or limited technology. That particular LT version does not include all the flavors, so you have to purchase the full version of AutoCAD, as we call it. All right. The second way, and the other way of obtaining AutoCAD MEP is via the AutoCAD again, but which is part of a collection, either the AEC collection or the Product Design and Manufacturing collection. So these two collections contain many pieces of software, and one of those are AutoCAD. And then obviously if you get AutoCAD, you get all the flavors as well, and that allows you to install those. Right, so that's basically the idea behind this. It's part of AutoCAD, which is obviously standalone or included in these collections. Okay, so what can you do with this piece of software? All right, now as I mentioned earlier, you are adding services to your projects, and it's in a familiar AutoCAD environment. If you look at the screenshot there, it's familiar, you know, if you know AutoCAD a little bit. Although it is, you're working in 3D, meaning as you add objects, they would have heights, be it, above the ceiling and below the roof, where you would add your ducts or pipes or whatever. Right, but what you would do with this, these services is you would add them to an existing plan or building. Normally, if it's kind of a pump house or it's a different kind of environment, you would still have some walls, floors, roof, and that sort of thing, and add your components within those. If it's a residential or a public or a shopping center or something, you would also need to just have the shell of the building already. Right, in saying that, yes, you can have them in 3D, or you can simply import or open the 2D plans. Right, and although those 2D plans don't have heights, you would just use them as a kind of a background reference, and then just draw your ducts, pipes, electrical information just at a height, but over this 2D plan. Obviously, we're looking at this from the top, so you won't see, you know, the heights of the walls. You would just see the 2D plan of your architectural floor plan, and then above that, your ducts and pipes and electrical information. All right, so obviously looking at that 2D model kind of from the side, you'll see at the bottom is your plan, and the ducts and whatever are floating. In that case, you can then import again, or change your uses and insert a section or an elevation of the building that you received from the architect, and that will appear as a background so that your ducts aren't floating, as I can say that. All right, obviously looking at it in a 3D angle, like a southwest isometric, that might not be sufficient. Right, so obviously first prize would have if you have a 3D model of your architectural building. All right, okay, so just basically just covering all that. Right, so now examples of what you can add to this building or using AutoCAD MEP is mechanical ducts. If you look in the middle of the those three images, you'll have the building with certain rooms, and you add diffusers and connect them with ducts and various other components. Right, these are object-based, so they're not lines that you offset and create. They are components and ducts and fittings that you add. Obviously, the advantage of that is that you can count them, you can count the lengths, you can very easily tag them, giving them names, dimension them, that sort of thing. All right, because they are objects. Right, then also on the left-hand side, there's some light fittings which you can connect using electrical wiring, cable trays, conduits, that sort of thing. Also, again, count them and cost them. Right, on the right-hand side, there's a kind of a plant-based plumbing and piping system where you kind of create the same kind of components. Each system might have a different color if it's supply or if it's hot water or cold water, if it's gas, that sort of thing. And each one can have a different color based on the system that you're drawing. They're all in 3D, so you can very easily look at heights, clashes, and that sort of thing. And if you're obviously looking at it from the top, you would see the roots and see if that planning is sufficient. Right, as you can see, it's very similar. If you stand back a bit, it's very similar to a product called Revit MEP, and where you link with the architects with the Revit architecture in the model, and you add your services. Right, so this one is just based on AutoCAD. Right, talking about Revit and linking with the architectural model. If the guys are working in Revit, they can export their 3D Revit model as a DWG, and you can use that then in your environment, adding your AutoCAD MEP services. That's one option. The other option is to draw out the walls as a simple exercise using the tools inside of AutoCAD MEP. AutoCAD MEP has got, we'll see it in the next couple of slides, has got most architectural functions, meaning that you can draw walls, doors, windows very easily. Basically, you won't need to be an architect to kind of create these components. They're very simply drawn and used. Obviously, you would just need to, draw floors, walls, maybe look at doors and windows, ceilings, and perhaps a roof. All right. So basically, those main components, it's very simple to do. So as part of a kind of a training course, you will learn how to use the architectural side of AutoCAD MEP to create this context where you add your services into. Right, as I mentioned earlier as well, you can open or link in a 2D AutoCAD drawing and then use that as a background and then add your services over that. An example is on the right hand side. There's a kind of a 2D plan where they add the ducts over that. Those ducts, the blue and red ducts, or purple, magenta, those would actually have heights, so they would float above, obviously, the floor, which the floor plan, which is at height of 0. If you look at it from the side, they will just be the 2D plan with the ducts floating, as opposed to the image on the left, where you have 3D components. And if you look at it from the southwest isometric, they fit in place. You can check clashes between the walls and the various things, whereas you can't obviously do that in the 2D environment, because it's obviously 2D plans versus the 3D ducts and services. All right, so there are benefits of creating your 3D model yourself if the architect has it. Right, a benefit to linking with the architect, xrefing is a function in AutoCAD, is that if any changes happen, it'll just update your floor plans, and in so doing, keep your drawings updated all the time. Even if you export it from Revit to a DWG, that DWG you would basically link in or xref in, and if that changes, it'll from the architect, it'll update your components or your 3D walls, doors, and windows. Right. So looking at the tools inside of AutoCAD MEP, you have a series of tool palettes or workspaces. On the image on the left, you would basically change those workspaces by clicking on the gear. There's an architectural, plumbing, electrical, piping, and HVAC workset. Not workset, workspace in AutoCAD. And when changing these to these workspaces, you would be presented with different tool palettes pertaining to that particular task. So if you set it to the architectural one, you'll have walls, doors, windows, and such to create and use these components. Then if you change it maybe to HVAC, you'll have the ducts and that you can create. There's by shape that you can have, like rectangular, round, and that's all the shapes, all by a system where it's already set up, and you can then, add supply air or return or exhaust air ducts and, apply a color to them to, more visually have them stand out. Then, so as you change these services, the tool palettes would adjust, allowing you to add from the tool palettes, the most common used tools. Right. Once you've added these components and drawn them out, sketched them out, looked at it in 3D, checked clashes and that sort of thing, you can also tag and dimension these. Basically, you go to the plan view or the top view of your model. You'll see all the objects in kind of a 2D environment, as you can see on the left-hand side of that image, and then you can tag them, add dimensions, annotate, and make sure that the annotations are correct, and the objects are named correctly. Right, and you can also see as an overview the planning and the routes of the components. The views on the right is basically 3D views where you can see heights and check if there's services that are clashing perhaps with your ducts. Right. Being in an AutoCAD environment, you would also have normal AutoCAD blocks. Perhaps it's a part of a legend or it's used in your existing workflow. There are tools within AutoCAD MEP which can convert these legend symbols or blocks in AutoCAD to a AutoCAD MEP component or object. So when you use your existing, light symbol, it actually has metadata behind it, like voltage, like height placement, and the 3D kind of look of it. So obviously you're going to there's a workflow within that process that you need to do, and set up all these, voltages and electrical components, features to this little AutoCAD block. Because AutoCAD block, yes, it's maybe just the geometry, but you need to add some metadata, maybe 3D geometry as well, maybe a side view, a top view, and that sort of thing. But there is a process that are available to convert these. All right. As I mentioned earlier also, we have these tool palettes. Now, they can only contain a certain number of items. Well, there's no maximum, but they kind of might not have everything in. So what you then have is a content library. And within that content library, this is now everything. And you can go and search for, so if there's something that's not in that tool palette, you can go and search your content library that gets installed with the software for that particular item. You can then, so on the left-hand side, there's various libraries. You'll see there's default UK tools, global tools, etc., documentation, catalogs, and on the right-hand side, you can see we've delved into a specific catalog and hovered over a conduit fitting, which you can then add to your drawing directly, or specifically insert or add to a tool palette. Once it's added to the tool palette, you can reuse it in future. Right, so these, that bend in the conduit fitting allows you to, add the components to your drawing from the stock catalog. All right, obviously, it's a process of getting to know these catalogs and what are in them, and if you can use, those components. Right. Once you add these components to your drawing, you also need to also know how they look, and the styles browser allow you to set that up as part of a process again. So fresh air ducts will look a certain way, exhaust air will look a certain way, the ducts of those systems or styles would look a certain way, and you can set that up using the styles browser. Right, and in so doing also create a little like a standard. Every office has got a different standard, but just with a little bit of training we can sort that out and allow you to set up this to look like your existing drawings that you perhaps did in AutoCAD, and in so doing speed things up. Right, so basically that was just a kind of an overview of the Revit MEP, AutoCAD MEP, and what it's used for and how you can not upgrade, but if you're using AutoCAD, you can now and you currently drawing services, you have the software, you can just do a couple of sessions of training and make your productivity or increase your productivity in creating services for your company or yourself. Right, so an advantage of this whole AutoCAD MEP is because it's in AutoCAD, or it's kind of based on AutoCAD, it is in a familiar environment. You still have your lines, arcs, and circles that you can add. Obviously, that's going to be 2D, but the majority of the functionality is there, and which you might not use because of drawing ducts in kind of a 3D component environment. But the idea behind AutoCAD MEP is to create your services projects faster. All right. So if any of you have got some questions, I'll be happy to answer them in the chat box. I'm going to stop recording, however, and we can take it offline. Right. So for those who want to leave, thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you very much. Have a good day further.